On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, it's about the overflow and contain properties. You can learn how to describe things like displaying scroll bars and clipping with the overflow property. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Now, let's take a look at the overflow property. The CSS overflow property is an important property that controls how to display the contents of an element when they exceed the size of its box. It is commonly used to shape the layout and user interface of web pages, helping to manage the display of scroll bars, clipping, and element overflow. The overflow property has four main values: visible, hidden, scroll, and auto. Visible is the default value, where the contents of an element overflow beyond the size of the box but still remain visible. The overflowed parts may overlap other elements, but scroll bars are not displayed in particular. Hidden is the setting where if the contents of an element exceed the size of the box, the overflowed parts are not displayed. No scroll bars are displayed, and the overflowed content won't be visible. When scroll is used, scroll bars are forcibly displayed if the element's content exceeds the box. Even if the content does not overflow, scroll bars are always displayed. Auto displays scroll bars only when the content overflows. If the content fits within the element's box, no scroll bars are displayed. The overflow property can also be controlled individually for the horizontal X axis and vertical Y axis directions. In this way, you can use overflow X and overflow Y to set the display of vertical and horizontal scroll bars individually. When using the overflow property, there are some points that you need to be careful about. Using scroll or auto to display scroll bars can disrupt the overall design of the page. In particular, if elements are placed at the right or bottom edge, scroll bars can make them less visible. The way scroll bars are displayed and function can vary between browsers. Especially between Windows and Mac OS, there are differences in scroll bar display styles, which can cause designs not to appear as intended. It is important to conduct cross-browser testing. Setting overflow hidden on a parent element hides child elements that exceed the parent's box. This may cause pop-ups and modal windows to not display correctly. In the new CSS specification, a value called overflow clip has also been introduced. This is similar to hidden, but it does not allow scrolling and only clips the content. The CSS overflow property is an essential tool for controlling the display of content in web design. By managing situations where content exceeds the element's box and by applying proper scroll bars or clipping, it provides users with a more user-friendly interface. Furthermore, using overflow X and overflow Y allows for fine-tuned control. Next, let's look at the contain property. The CSS contain property limits the influence an element has on other elements and the entire page, optimizing the browser's rendering process. Specifically, it confines reflows and repaints by preventing style or layout changes in an element from affecting content outside that element. This is important for web page performance and is particularly effective for websites with complex layouts or large amounts of content. The contain property has the following values. Layout applies restrictions related to layout. By using this value, the size and position of an element do not affect other elements. For example, even if an element is resized internally, that change does not affect the external layout. Paint limits the impact of painting, drawing. When this value is specified, drawing within the element no longer affects external elements, thereby limiting the range of repaint calculations. Size ensures that the element's size does not depend on external elements. Specifically, it prevents the resizing of child elements from affecting the parent element's size, thereby enhancing layout stability. Style ensures that an element's style does not affect external elements. For example, specifying contain style ensures that style changes in that element do not impact other elements, reducing the range of recalculations. Content is a composite value that applies layout, paint, size, and style. Using this, you can ensure that the element's layout, drawing, size, and style have no impact on external elements at all. The main reason for using the contain property is to improve web page performance. In particular, it is effective in the following situations. Reflow optimization. When the size or layout of an element changes, its impact can be limited to the smallest possible scope. This reduces the scope of unnecessary reflows, layout recalculations, and eases the load on the browser. Reducing repaints. By limiting the drawing area, the portion that needs to be repainted when an element's style or content changes can be minimized. Component-based development. Since each component or module operates independently from other elements, it enhances the performance of each component even in large-scale web applications. When using the contain property, you should keep the following points in mind. Understanding the scope of application. The contain property is helpful for performance optimization, but it should not be applied to every element. It is important to use it appropriately in suitable places. For example, using it on frequently changing elements or parts of a large DOM structure might degrade performance instead. Browser compatibility. The contain property is a relatively new CSS feature and is not fully supported by all browsers. It is supported in major browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, but might not be applicable in older versions. The CSS contain property is a powerful tool for optimizing the performance of web pages and applications. By limiting the impact a specific element has on others, it reduces reflow and repaint costs, streamlining the overall rendering process. However, it is important to carefully consider where to apply it and use it appropriately. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.